All right, so just to do some formal introductions here from our end, I'm Ben. I do the PR management for Visionary Realms. We've got Salim Grant, who you've been talking to. He's our director of development, and of course Brad McQuaid, who's our current chief creative officer.
Excellent.
Hey guys.
Nice to meet you guys. And then just on our side, I'm Benjamin Tarsa. I'm the community manager for GamePD.com. We've been working on getting the official wiki running. We've got Michael Comperda here. He's our CTO, and as well as Zak Steltz, who's our product manager. And the two of them are big fans, so we invited them to join us. They've got lots of great questions for you guys.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, Michael, did you want to give a short kind of history of us?
Sure. Yeah, I normally don't do participate in the content parts of the company. I'm the CTO, but huge fan of EverQuest and Vanguard. Zach and I actually played Vanguard in the beta phase for about a year. I was a guild leader in that game, and just were very, very excited about what you guys are cooking up. So we wanted to have an opportunity to create some of the questions, and then Ben said, "Hey, why don't you guys actually ask the questions?" So that's what we're doing.
Great.
Cool. Well, I guess I can get started, if that's okay. So we've sort of divided up our questions into different sort of categories. We have general questions, questions related to questing, game engine, that kind of thing. So here's sort of a general question. Recent MMOs have really put a lot more emphasis on accessibility and really on the rails gameplay. And to a large extent, I think this has had a really negative impact on player freedom and social engagement, with the community. What are you guys doing with Pantheon that might break away from that trend?
Well, first of all, the majority of the game is open world, so you definitely should not feel that you are on a rail. The only exception to that would be we will have some instance dungeons where we really want to focus on storytelling and kind of a linear story, but that's definitely the exception, not the rule. People should feel that they're part of a virtual world, that they're, that they can explore where they want. That doesn't mean they might not, they may wander into an area that's a little too dangerous for them, but that's all possible.
Great. Yeah, that the wandering into an area that's too dangerous, I think, is actually a good thing. I missed that. Cool. Well, I have a question now regarding quests. So in EverQuest, quests are fairly rare, and they're not really a major focus of gameplay. This has really led to far more player freedom, where you group more organically around your personal goals, not quest-related goals entirely. To a large extent, Vanguard sort of abandoned that design from EverQuest and offered thousands of quests, really more like World of Warcraft. I was curious what your current take on the role of questing is in an MMO.
Our outlook on questing is more like EverQuest or Final Fantasy XI. We don't want you to have a quest journal filled with quests and it's just go here, 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 and here. You're not really experiencing the game. We want you to like you said, more organically group and just kind of go somewhere and discover things together. And if you this spot has a particular NPC or something that drops something cool, you want to get friends together and try to get that item. We're definitely going for a feel like that. We feel that EverQuest definitely did well on a social front because people had combat was a little slower pace, and they weren't looking at a UI element that was their quest journal. That was effectively a go from A to B to C to D. Here's XP and here's some sort of reward. We want people to interact with each other. We want people to talk to each other. We want to get to know each other a lot better, whether that be in voice or in chat. So yeah, as far as the number of quests, this was one of the first things that we brought up when we first started having design meetings. We're very focused on fewer quests, but when you do get those quests, they are significant. Things like epic quests will definitely exist, and I don't think I could talk to any designer on the team and ask them if they want to do epic quests and have them say no. Like, that is an exciting thing to put in a game because we understand that from a player point of view, that accomplishment is so significant that it just creates memories for multiple people, because obviously it's not a solo thing that you'd be doing.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, lately for me at least, MMOs really felt more like a job where I log in, look at my errands that I have to run for various NPCs, and try to find other people on the same step as me. And I really miss the days of just logging in, getting on Vent, and asking some of my friends to go kill something. So that's really cool.
Michael, if you don't mind, I'm going to just jump in on your questions really quick to kind of ask one of mine, as I think kind of works off that, which, from reading, it looks like Pantheon seems like it'll have a lot of focus on groups and working with other players. I was just wondering if you guys are planning on doing any kind of innovation within like the guild system or other tools and systems to sort of facilitate, those community interactions that are going to be so central to the game.
Right now, I couldn't really speak to any level of the guild design, but we're designing the game around grouping, so everything that links onto that would obviously we need to design to enhance that particular focus. So once we get to that point, if there is any innovation there for that, then hopefully we can discover it. But if not, you can expect that all that stuff will work seamlessly together. That every aspect of anything like guilds or grouping will work very well within the game space. Focused on that particular thing. We want people to group, we want the social interaction to be key, and we don't want to put anything in that doesn't contribute to that and make it a fun experience.
And also there will be, and we can't go into the details yet, but there'll be game mechanics and functionality that help people find groups and guilds and get to where they need to be in order to have fun with their friends. And I gotta leave it at that, because that's where that's our desire. Sometimes, traveling and exploring the world is really important, but being able to do that with your friends is even more important, and so that's kind of our priority.
So building off of kind of you mentioned traveling there and stuff like that, it seems like game worlds in a lot of the more modern MMOs feel kind of theme parky. They're very benign. There's not any danger. You can only enter areas that you're level appropriate for. There's no real danger to them. Can we expect that to change in Pantheon?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things we like to say is that in Pantheon you'll have a respect for the environment, and that respect comes from having an open world where you can explore where you want to explore. So we don't have an area we won't have an area that's made for that won't let somebody that shouldn't be there in. They'll find out that they shouldn't be there on their own.
Cool. Well, a question sort of related to geography is starting areas. Both Vanguard and EverQuest offer players, a really large variety of places to start. I know Vanguard kind of backtrack on that recently, but they were designed around the idea of having many races, different cultures, and really having a completely different experience where you started. Many current MMOs that are really popular right now have kind of abandoned that in favor of having just a couple starting areas. What are your thoughts on starting areas in Pantheon?
Our current lore, the way our current lore works, we won't have a bunch of starting areas, but it's just really derived from the way our planet works. Just the fact that there's a lot of these planar collisions and things mixed together, and what your actual character represents, it works within our lore pretty well. But the makeup of where you do start, we still want to get across the notion of different cultures and things like that. But our game is really focused on the varying pantheons and how they kind of mesh together, and what comes out of that, whether it be rivalries, wars, whatever. With the way our lore works, it didn't really contribute to having a bunch of cities all over the place. So I think that answers the question.
Well, we would also, here's something that's important to us, and that is, you'll probably see, like Salim saying, fewer cities, but those cities could have areas where you start depending on your race and everything, kind of like San Francisco has a Chinatown or what have you. What we want to get away from is spending a bunch of time making all these different cities that people just start out in and might use for a merchant or something. But that's an awful lot of work, and we'd rather build more dungeons.
Gotcha.
It's a good way to put it.
So, speaking of races and stuff like that, this is a question that is very, I think, or whenever it's brought up in kind of the early parts of MMO design, it's very, people are very opinionated about it, I guess. And I don't know how much you guys can talk to it now, but what's your stance on like an all race, all class system?
We do not plan on doing that right now. While I have been a fan of it in the past, just because I like the idea. When you talk about a role-playing game and the notion of you being able to play your character the way you want, it doesn't make sense that there is a limitation on what you could be. I mean, you could be. I mean, Dritz Do'Urden, right? He's the Dark Elf Ranger. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, he shouldn't be able to do that based on some rules set up by fantasy. But so as far as all race, all class, I've always been a huge fan of it because I like being that guy that just kind of plays the different thing. But when we started this, we wanted to go for a more traditional fantasy thing. Like I said, EverQuest is a big inspiration for it. And so, lore-wise, it feels cool being able to say, okay, these races can be these classes for these reasons, and the player can play that out. It just doesn't feel right to do all races, all classes for us. We definitely want to get that EverQuest feel when it comes to that.
An important part of the game, though, too, is you'll be out there exploring the world, going to the depths of the dungeon, and you'll find these essences that allow you to have abilities and spells that may not be typical for the class that you've chosen. So you may, you're probably 90% the class that you've chosen, but you're able to kind of customize your character and do some things that the class might not normally be able to do. So there's a little bit of multi-classing in there, even though we wanted to keep that kind of rigidity. So I think that's an important part of that too. You may have chosen a certain race and class, but if it's your desire, you can go out there and customize your character to a limited degree.
Okay. And will there be alternate modes of advancement besides, traditional, just your main class experience? Like in the original EverQuest, they had alternate advancement.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I mean, right now we're looking at doing a system similar to EverQuest's AA system. Okay. But on top of that, like Brad mentioned, our combat has a thing called Hero Essences and you will. The goal is for you to be able to basically slot in or basically equip these essences and take on the aspects or gain the abilities of these heroes. And if you collect everything about them, you could actually start to look like the hero or take on certain things, certain aspects of them on top of getting their abilities, things like that, and kind of mix and match stuff. So that's another type of advancement with that.
There's also we haven't talked a lot about this yet, but there's also our achievement system, and it's not just going to be your typical achievement system where you were the first to do this, but it has no impact on the game. Our achievement system will have impact on the game.
Very cool.
Yeah, so speaking of combat, in EverQuest, the class you chose obviously meant a great deal. It not only impacted, the flavor and the lore or how your hotbar looked, but it really, you had a completely different role in the group, obviously, and a different way to sort of experience the world. Some people, like me, like to play a warrior. I like to tank. I didn't want to have a lot of buttons to press. I really wanted to stare at the screen and be more strategic about where my character was and sort of be the leader. Since EverQuest, MMOs, I think, have really homogenized class design so that every class, no matter what your playstyle may be, you're just constantly spamming your hotbar. How do you see combat and class design in Pantheon playing out?
You said one of the key words for design. That's strategic, not having a lot of buttons to press, looking at your screen. Those are very, very key points when it comes to EverQuest and FF11. The combat was slower. You were able to react to things. If Frolok's about to cast Ice Comet, I can use my stun. to stop him, or an enchanter has the ability to do an AE mez and then single target mez a pull.
Right.
We want to bring that back. The notion of pulling a mob, feign death pulling, things like that. Those things are some of the coolest things about EverQuest, and those things are gone. Like they just haven't been reproduced. And the reasons why I don't know, but we want to bring that back. That's all strategy. That's all preparation. That's another word that we've been focusing on when it comes to our combat. We want you to stop and prepare and think, okay, there's three mobs. This mob casts spells. He's probably going to stay back. This mob, is a rogue. He might, pop behind us, and we have to be prepared for these types of things. So let's lay a trap, or let's get our monk in there to feign. Those things, when you think about our combat, those are the things that we want people to kind of resonate with and expect from our combat. Is a little bit slower pace, being able to stop and be strategic. And when you have an ability in your bar that's meant to be strategic, instead of stun being a part of your rotation, stun is an exception ability. It's something that you use only when it needs to be used. If this guy is about to cast something, I can either try to hit him again, or I can stun him and see if that stun will land. That's really what we're focusing on with our combat.
Okay, so that addresses one of my questions, which was sort of the strategic nature of it. But what about just even like differences among classes? Like the example I gave is like, if I'm a warrior, I have a certain way that I experience the game. But if I'm like a monk, I'm doing a lot different things. And I think that not only creates a cooler experience for me as the warrior, but in seeing how other people play the game differently, it makes it more interesting and more deep.
Yeah, we also, to go to talk about games like Vanguard, one of the greatest things about Vanguard was that a lot of classes played differently.
Sure.
They were very thematic, and we did our best to try to play on those themes to produce cool gameplay out of it. And we want to do the same thing here. Like example, the cleric we were talking about when we were talking about how we could do kind of different things with the cleric. We've got the battle cleric, kind of a standard deal. But then we talked about, hey, what if you could be a robed cleric? Maybe you can summon some sort of faith-based beings to help you out and kind of stand back and be that type of healer. Then we talked about the book being involved, and the prayer book, or faith book, I forgot which we end up calling it, being involved in that. Then we talked about, hey, maybe there's this other system to them, kind of a belief system that kind of works with Pantheon. So like we're definitely trying to invest in this is the class. We understand the class's role. We understand how all these other things are going to manipulate them, like the hero essences and stuff like that. But at its core, how can we make that role play different? If this is their box, how can you interact with this box differently than you interact with the Dark Knight box and all these other things? And then make sure they all fit into this high level, view of combat.
Great, it's exciting. I loved the Vanguard class design. I played a warrior and a paladin, and I loved it. So
yeah, Vanguard classes were fantastic.
Yep.
So it sounds like you guys are going to be using a more traditional, like experience-based system. Would I be correct in that, or we guys? Is there a possibility for something like skill-based, kind of like Asheron's Call or Final Fantasy? Oh, you're asking if we're going to have levels versus skills? Correct. It's almost a neither. We're going to have. So I can't say that our progression is set in stone. We are floating some ideas around it. Brad has mentioned, was it horizontal advancement?
Yeah,
versus
really all we've said at this point is we're seriously considering fewer levels with more content per level.
Yes.
And we probably want to leave it at that at this point, because that's something we're going to be experimenting with.
Yeah.
We want to be very careful. We're doing a Kickstarter campaign, so a lot of information is coming out earlier than normal we would with the game development, which is fine. But the caveat there is that, we're not 2-3 years in development. We want to be careful that, we've got some cool ideas, but until we get them really functional, we don't want them to be set in stone. Yeah, and as far as specifically if we're going to skills or levels, we'll have skills for sure, but it'll probably be more like an EverQuest
type system where your class has a number of skills instead of you just having a bunch of skills and just kind of making up your own class as you go along.
Yeah, you're still going up levels. We'll leave it at that. You've got skills like Salim said, but we want you to be able to look at your character and say, oh, hey, I've accomplished this or I've done this. And there will be an indication, whether it's called a level or a tier or whatever, there'll be an indication that'll tell you, so you can keep track of how your character is becoming more and more powerful and more versatile.
Okay, and a lot of modern MMOs, they seem to de-emphasize leveling. They want to make it as quick as possible to get to whatever the level cap is. Do you guys agree with that style, or do you want to make leveling kind of a more of a long-term experience like in EverQuest or Vanguard?
More of a long-term, like in EverQuest or Vanguard. Again, we're thinking fewer levels, more content per level. We are creating a system where the player, can't really just sit there and power level through everything. You have to go places and accomplish things, and because there's more content per level, it's very important that the player, experiences a lot of that content as well. So hopefully, if we do our jobs, it won't be a scenario where, everyone just wants to play the end game, so they skip, the lower and middle area of the game. We'd like them to experience and hopefully enjoy the entire game.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why we play these games is for some of the cool stuff we get, and specifically items. So in EverQuest, the world really offered not only the ability to explore the geography, but the items that you would find in these new areas, which were unique. The items were obviously dropped less frequently, and it made getting a drop more meaningful, more an impactful thing. So I guess my question is, what approach are you taking to itemization at a high level with Pantheon?
Once again, very much more old school. The number of upgrades, between your this level and level 1, level 30 or whatever, you're not going to have a whole bunch of upgrades in there. We want you to be able to, at the end of the day, be excited. I got an SMR. How long? And you love the SMR. You can. Someone asks you what items you have equipped. You can name them all by name because you spent time getting them, and those items are with you for a long time. I mean, you don't get a robe and then the next day, oh man, another robe. Oh, darn. And that kind of goes back to the having a bunch of quests and things like that, and having to reward people with those. So we very much want to, as you described, it's much more like EQ. Or other games back then of that type, where you go find a spot, you see a new mob, he may drop something super cool, awesome, it's very unique. You may be the first person in the server who got it, and you may be that first person for a little bit, and that item's going to stay with you. And that item is special. It is unique. It doesn't look like it was just generated from something, and there's like 4 or 5 different items just throughout the world that may have +1 or ± to the stat. You earn that item, and it feels like a part of your character, a part of you.
So would you say that the loot tables are more deliberately set versus just sort of like a random distribution?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So speaking of some of the mobs that drop that awesome loot that we all want, the original EverQuest had a really kind of static AI system. You go into town, there'd always be the same NPCs where they are, and then we have EverQuest Next, which is really touting a living, breathing, dynamic world where you may not find the same mob camp where it was last time you saw it. So that's kind of a continuum there. Where do you guys see Pantheon falling on that?
Population wise, there's not really much I can speak to right now. We're still kind of in the early developments of where we want to go, exploring what all we can do with our engine.
I can address it kind of philosophically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, philosophically, it's good. You know, we'll have stuff that changes around, and we'll have stuff that doesn't. And here's why. People have claimed for many years they want a fully dynamic world. The problem with the fully dynamic world is you can't learn it. You can't go in there and say, you know what, I really know how to get through this area because I died a few times and my guild finally got through it, and so I feel good that I know what areas to avoid or what tactics to take. And if it's changing every time, I really don't think people want that when they say they want dynamic, but they just don't want complete Groundhog Day where it's always everything is always the same. So we'll mix things around, but we really think that players want to feel that sense of accomplishment when they've beaten an area and they know how to tactically maneuver that area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And to his point, I mean, you'll definitely see stuff like Kit the Core. By day it's one thing, by night it's something else. We definitely want to do stuff like that. Depending on time of day, this may be here or not. Mobs obviously are going to roam around, but yeah, I think Brad put it pretty well.
Cool. So I've got a question about dungeons. Zach can attest to my interest in exploring every dungeon in a game and trying to crawl through it and see every part of it. The dungeons in EverQuest and Vanguard both were incredible. Sebelis, Unrest, Kale, I mean, the list goes on. In Vanguard, Tringal, Dargan's Tomb, I mean, I've experienced them all and I love them, but a lot of games don't get dungeons right. They're very formulaic, or they have a hallway here and there and you're done. So I guess, what are your thoughts on dungeon design going forward?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? I mean, anyone who's been playing since EverQuest, if you ask him like what are some of their favorite dungeons, Sebelis will probably be in that list, North TOV, and we want to bring that back. I don't want to say that there's MMOs today don't have great dungeons, because I don't know that that's a good general statement to make. There's obviously a lot of good, well-designed, cool dungeons and all MMOs today. But we definitely want to, the fact that we're keeping things open means that we're going to have just these huge, hopefully huge, epic dungeons that you're going to experience and bring back those experiences like Sebelis, like when you were in Kesora, things like that. We want to bring that kind of kookiness back, traps on the ground and things like that, and having to be careful and kind of slink through the dungeon, and knowing that there's other people there, people are shouting, or hey, I'm coming to the zone, I might have some mobs with me, things like that. Like, not saying that we want to bring a bunch of trains back, but just as an example of the nostalgia, we're definitely looking at it that way. We want dungeons to be awesome. Obviously, we want some great dungeon design out of it. I'm actually really excited about getting in there and seeing what we can do dungeon wise.
Me too. I'm the same way. I want the huge dungeon. There's multiple routes to different locations. There may be multiple entrances, multiple exits. We want to bring that back.
Yeah, I think personality is a big part of it too, right? I mean, when you went to the bottom of Kesora and where Zalgaz stood, that like the area is just kind of, when you think about it now, it's like, yeah, that's Zalgaz's spot. Like, that's where he spawns. Howling Stones, just like Veneral Sather's images on the wall, knowing that Drusilla is back there and she's just a glitch. And the nice thing about EverQuest is that, like I said, there's few quests, but the game itself told its story, right? Howling Stones is just great when you just think about going through it. And once you find out about, the background of Veneral Sather and Drusilla and all that stuff, and you go back to the dungeon, you're like, man, like this story's kind of being told here. Like, this is really cool. And you can probably say that about a lot of dungeons in Kunark and Sebelis. Like, when you find out all these things, when you find out about Trakanon and what went on with him and Emperor Gannick and all these things, it's just kind of, you learned about it organically. You just kind of went through the game, and it just, I'm sorry, I'm getting really...
No, it sounds great. Sounds like you guys have dungeons pretty much well under control. That's good. Cool. Cool.
Well, just real. Sorry, just going to add real quick, just as a reminder too, that the guy who actually made those dungeons, like the Sebulus and stuff, he's actually doing our dungeons as well. So.
Yes. Ooh, yeah. Awesome guy.
He's making them right now. Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
I saw you guys had like an early kind of 3D render of it,
Yeah.
or of a dungeon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool. So my next question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Zach, is with regards to geography. I actually bought like all the maps for EverQuest. I love just sort of looking at the continents, how they all work together. And so, you know, Vanguard and EverQuest both actually had really, really inspiring geography to sort of explore. Multiple continents, huge variety of landscapes, all sort of fitting within the game lore. You know, offering such a wide variety as either of those games takes a lot of time and resources, obviously, to develop. I was curious sort of what the scope is of Pantheon and what sort of, you know, diversity and scope will exist in the geography.
That's certainly our goal too. In fact, we think with our storyline, where these different shards are intersecting with the world terminus, we can even be more creative. So we not only want to head in that direction, but we want to even make some more fantastic areas to discover and explore. So that's for sure what we're looking for.
Okay.
So, kind of building on the geography question, it seems to me that EverQuest was one of the last MMOs that really felt mysterious. That thing you didn't know, what to expect when you went into a zone. And I think part of that is, and maybe a lot of that is just due to, the role of fan sites and stuff like that was just so it didn't really exist at the time, or it was in its infancy. Do you think it's possible to still have mystery anymore in MMOs, or are there things that you guys are going to try and do to protect that mystery?
Sorry, man. I'm sorry. There's a bunch of stuff going on in my house. So you're asking if how we're gonna deal with the fact that fan sites have kind of taken over as far as information goes for MMOs. This is something that we're still discussing, and obviously we hopefully can reach out to fan sites and become friends with them and kind of work out some sort of agreement. But I mean, really, if we're not going to try to stop people from having information, right?
Sure.
We're not going to stop people. I mean, ultimately, if you Zach, if you want to play Pantheon and not and keep that mystery about it as much as you can, then you don't have to go to those sites. Or maybe you're the guy, you want an experience for the first time and give that information to other people. I mean, that's all part of the social aspect of things, right? So there's nothing that I don't think we could even do to stop that from happening, and I don't think we really have that much of an issue with it. If people come to us, if fans come to us and they want information, then there'll probably be rules on how they expose that information. We don't want people. We don't want to give people our drop percentages and things like that of certain items. We would prefer that people discover those things, and once they're discovered, if people want to talk about where they got them from, that's fine. I mean, that's more people talking to each other. Preferably it'd be in game. But I think our outlook on it is, if people want information, they're going to get it anyway. There's no reason for us to even, explore trying to stop it from happening. We just embrace it, right? I mean, nothing wrong with people talking to each other and giving each other information, as long as the experience when they're doing it is fun. That's really what we should be focused on.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that sounds like a totally reasonable answer given today's kind of climate with information sites.
Yeah, we have to be contemporary in our thinking when it comes to stuff like that. We can't, we like being old school and we want to bring some of those things forward, but we have to understand that there are some things where we have to be modern about it, and I don't think anyone on the team is opposed to that.
Okay, so kind of slightly different topic here, but it somewhat relates to the size of the world and scope and stuff like that. Games tend to have they tend to differ in how many concurrent players they want per server. You have something like Eve, which is kind of an outlier in that it everyone's on the same server, and you have other games where it's maybe only 1,000 people that they allow concurrently. Do you guys have a rough estimate of where you would like to go with that?
Well, we're gonna definitely have multiple servers. How many people will fit on a server should be dictated by how much content there is in the game at launch.
Okay.
And you can adjust from there. So that's our philosophy. It's certainly far too early to come up with a number like that because the content isn't done.
Sure. And do you guys have plans on doing like a cross-server play? WoW has really, essentially WoW, it has lots of servers, but it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Everyone can kind of play with everyone in most cases. How do you guys feel about that?
I am a huge fan of cross-server play. When you talk about things like transportation making a world feel small, I think that not being able to, when you're on a server that maybe people just aren't there at a certain amount of time, but you've been on it for a while, not being able to somehow interact with people on other servers, to at least have them come and help you or just build relationships, is not cool. I mean, even back in EQ days when they put cross-server chat in, it was significant. So I mean, I would like to explore that avenue, and I know our main programmer is definitely on that same page. He would like to have cross-server stuff if possible, if it works. I mean, we don't want to start messing with performance or anything like that and have those huge issues. But I am a huge fan of crossover play.
I think the only exception would be is we hope to have some special servers, some alternate rule set servers. Like maybe a role-playing server or PvP or what have you. And in those cases, it may make sense to restrict some of that. But in general, what Salim said is definitely where we want to go.
Okay. And now for some more kind of higher level questions about Pantheon as a project. You guys have mentioned, or several times throughout the Kickstarter, they're mentioned of like subscriptions. Is that the plan, a traditional subscription model rather than like a microtransaction model?
Yeah, the general plan is, you can play the first few levels for free, no restrictions, no handicaps. After that, it's a subscription-based model. I wouldn't completely rule out microtrans. We're trying to look into different ways to do that, but I'll say that we're not going to be in there selling a bunch of stuff, selling power, selling experience boosts. There may be some special lore-related stuff that we do there, so I don't want to completely rule it out. But in the most part, it's a traditional subscription-based model.
Okay. And what would be a successful number of subscribers for you guys? It seems to you guys have a much more niche audience, a much more focused kind of design directive. Do you guys have a number in mind that that would really be like, yeah, I really want to hit that number, or is it you just kind of open to whatever happens?
Well, we're kind of open to whatever happens because whatever happens is going to happen. But 20 to 50,000 players would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean that number. I mean, the success is based obviously on team size and what we can do. I mean, if we get 20,000 players and that fits with who we have on the team, we're able to pump out the content or whatever that supports people and makes them happy. Then that's cool. If we get more people, then we can grow a little bit more and grow the game a little bit more. So I mean, really, for us, the success is whatever number allows us to obviously profit a little bit and continue to provide for whoever's paying us.
Yeah, and build the world. Really, I mean, it's neat.
I think I have the
We are making a targeted game, and we have a smaller team, and so we don't. We're not a large publisher who's spent a lot of money, so we don't have to have the huge numbers. We can do very well, and like Salim was saying, keep building on top of the game and releasing content and features with a number that's much smaller than some of the bigger huge games.
Okay. So looking into the future a little bit, the game industry is kind of pretty rapidly changing right now. There's new technologies like Oculus Rift and mobile devices are, just becoming bigger and bigger every year. Do you guys have any plans or even rough ideas of how you guys might handle those types of platforms in the future?
Oculus Rift support is something that we want to look into, but its priority in reference to other things, I couldn't say where it is right now. We obviously need to see. I am hugely interested in Oculus Rift. I think it's like one of the biggest advancements for our industry in recent times, as far as the consumer experience. So if our game could function on that, especially with the companion device, I forget what it's called, it's supposed to let your body do more stuff. If we can get our game playing with that and it actually adds to the experience, then I'm all for it. And our lead programmer is all over that too. He's been talking about it like crazy. But obviously we have to prioritize actually getting the game done.
Sure.
But the fact that it's possible, when we go about designing stuff, which we've already kind of had these discussions, when we go about designing stuff, we have to have that in the back of our head. Hey, if we're designing combat, how would it work with Oculus Rift if we were able to get that technology? So when sitting down and talking about those types of things, we try to keep those things in the back of our head, so that if we can get the support in, that it's as seamless as humanly possible.
Okay. And then I have one final question, and it's not probably not one that you guys want to think about too much, but what are your plans if Pantheon doesn't reach its funding goal on Kickstarter?
Then we'll reach out, like I guess most people do. We'll reach out to investors and publishers. We're serious about this game. We are confident that there is an audience out there, and Kickstarter is something new, relatively new, especially for larger projects. And so, even if when we do make the goal, we'll still probably need to talk to some publishers or developers. So that's just all kind of the process of going around and gathering up the money you need to make your dream game become a reality.
Sure. And are you guys kind of thinking of something like, I believe it's Star Citizen, that they did the Kickstarter, but they've continued throughout development, having kind of a Kickstarter model, and they've been very successful in that.
Absolutely. Shroud the Avatar, same thing. Yeah, we from the get-go knew that we wanted to do that.
Okay, cool. Did you have any more questions, Benjamin? Tarsa?
Sorry, I was muted. No, not particularly. Jumping back, I guess, a little bit to talking about the community sites, we're getting ready to sort of start up this official wiki, so I may be interested. I would just be curious to see what kind of role you think sites like that are going to play in the sort of, liminal time between, funding and when, this game is going to be sort of further along in development and playable.
Man, that's a good question. It's probably just you tell us, what involvement you'd like to have, right? Because games in development, whatever you feel would benefit both of us in regards to you helping us get the word out and also us helping get people to focus on your site. And when it comes to information, it's really, I think that's just a discussion we need to have and make it the best for both worlds.
Cool. Well, that's all. I just requisite Gamepedia related question. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Makes sense.
Mike, do you have any questions?
I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to talk to us. I mean, I'm really, really excited about this game. Huge fan of your guys' prior work, so really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and it's great.
Yeah,
all counts there.
Yeah, like I said, I am very, very excited about getting in and designing stuff for this game. I got a systems background. I'm really stoked about some of the stuff that we're talking about systems-wise, but really just being able to go back to those things. As you can see, how excited I got about just one dungeon.
Yeah.
I want to be able to evoke that same emotion when it comes to Pantheon and talking about a dungeon, talking about a landscape, talking about an experience. I mean,
Right.
those types of things are hugely important. My kids, I'm raising them in an environment where I let them play kind of these old school games, and they do like them. I mean, obviously they're 10 and 9, so they don't know. their opinions will change, I'm sure. But yeah, I am really, really excited and really stoked about working on this game, and the team is very, very excited about it as well. We can't stop talking about it. So hopefully this thing kicks off, and we can, give you guys something great.
Yeah, it feels great. It's so much fun to be in this part of the development process, where so many great ideas are coming from each other, coming from the community. It's just a lot of fun. I'm having a great time.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and I'll be in touch, Benjamin, with sort of whatever we come up with, articles, and might do like a little video or something like that. So.
Yeah, great. Anything you need, just let me know. I'm at your disposal. I believe I sent you the FTP information already. We've got stuff on there that you can use in the interim, and yeah, anything you need, any follow-up questions, anything, just let me know.
Excellent. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys.
guys.
Have a great afternoon.
You too.
All right, take care.